benchmarking against competitors, or holding media houses accountable for ad placements. Monitoring builds long-term resistance and resilience. It ensures your brand isn't just keeping up with the market, but setting the pace. So, what can you expect today? Well, we'll dive into practical insights, real-world case studies, and proven strategies that you can take back to your teams. Our goal is to give you the tools and confidence to navigate Q4 with precision and to carry that success well into 2026. So I encourage you to ask questions, share your thoughts, and engage with us throughout the session so you can win all the wonderful prizes. So with that, let's get started.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Alison, for those remarks. And going along those lines, I encourage the audience members here with us today. We are from Trinidad, Barbados, Jamaica to please engage, put your LinkedIn profiles in your chat, right? And if you have any questions throughout, you can limit it to the Q&A section that we have, and our team will attend to it and revise, and we'll get to you. All right. So right now we're going to move on to the poll, our first poll of the session. All right. And it's what's your biggest campaign challenge heading into Q4? So I'm going to give you about 15 seconds or so to answer. All right. The first option is standing out in ad clutter, tracking competitive activity. Well, you guys could see it. I'm managing budgets effectively. All right. Oh, we're seeing a bit of a struggle here, a bit of a fight. Okay, so we're still going. All right. About 6 seconds. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Excellent. All right. So the poll is done. And we got 43% saying measuring campaign success. That was one of the biggest challenges heading into Q4. And second to that, we had standing out in ad clutter. And thirdly, managing budgets effectively. All right. So this is some interesting insights here. All right. Okay, so getting straight into it, I want to give some house rules to the audience members here, and likewise the rest of the team. This is an online webinar, so in the event connection is cut because things can happen, hang in there. Our team will work assiduously to get us back online and get the show going on. All right, going forward. Okay. All right, so now we're going to introduce our lineup of panelists without further ado. All right, giving us their agency perspective, their banking perspective, and their retail perspective. All right, our first panelist is Arnold J.J. Foote. He is our multi-award winner and executive chairman of AdMac Zing, Jamaica. Everyone could give him a round warm of applause. You can send a message in the chat welcoming him in. He last year was recognized as the advertising chairperson of the year for the Caribbean as well. Next, we have giving us their banking perspective. We have Stephanie Nahus, who's the marketing manager of Answer Merchant Bank, based right here in Trinidad, whose experience of over 10 years across various industries has gained her wide recognition, including banking, aviation, and advertising. Welcome, Stephanie. And lastly, we have Kelly Mitchell, all the way from St. Lucia, not too far. He is the divisional head of marketing and corporate comms and Massey Stores, where he leads brand strategy and stakeholder engagement. All right, so these are your panelists, and they have some very interesting insights to share with us this morning. Okay, so starting off, Arnold, my first question will go to you. Okay. As we're entering into Q4, right? I know from my own experience, a lot of agencies are trying to survive. Okay, they experience budget cuts, they experience creative fatigue. What from an agency perspective, what do you see are the biggest challenges and opportunities brands face going into Q4?
So, this has been a challenging year. I mean, for every country, but more so, I think for the countries that had general elections. I think Guyana, Trinidad, Jamaica, And then, of course, the United States that have just come out of their own kind of thing. Um, there's always a tendency for a wait and see attitude for clients. Not sure how much to invest. The market becomes a little strange. From our agency perspective, we're not driven necessarily by if there are those peaks and valleys. We're not worried about if business goes down a little bit, because at the end of the day, every agency, certainly ours, should be driven by providing the right kind of support, regardless of what the scenarios are. So even if budgets have contracted, the agencies should be there to make the most of what is available. The challenges coming into Q4 now, just to be a little more specific, is how do you make up the lost ground? You're trying to close out the year. You're managing. I saw a point in the poll about managing budgets. Your budgets have probably changed during the course of the year. So you're trying to close out strong. You're trying to get back to what your projections were. And that seems to be the biggest challenge that some of our clients are facing. And I've heard that kind of sentiment from a couple of our colleagues across the industry. So yeah, so it should be a very interesting closeout for 2025.
Right. And speaking of budgets and budget cuts, right? In Jamaica and the wider Caribbean, are you noticing like any sort of like shifts? Maybe it's minimal, maybe it's at top gear for other markets that, in terms of how brands allocate their budgets for traditional versus digital media.
There's definitely a shift to digital. Well, there's a perception that the online media is less expensive than offline media, and in many cases it is. The shift is it goes at the end of the day to insights and trackability, right?
Mhm.
So you want to be able to say that you're speaking to the right person at the right time with the right message, kind of thing, and you can prove it. Um, so that shift has happened, and but in some cases we have seen and we've had to address with some of our clients the knee-jerk reaction to put everything in
Mhm.
digital. So that would be a mistake, and we can't look at it that traditional versus digital. Everything is traditional. I mean, online stuff is 20 years old, right? So it's just making the best kind of fit for purpose messaging for the right touch point to speak to the audience that you want. So abandoning what we commonly call traditional media would be a mistake. There's a credibility, there's a different kind of um, audience receptivity. So what I mean by that is that when you're online, your chances are you're at work, like many of you are today, and you take a break because you just finished this project, you just finished this meeting, and you go and you check your phone, wherever you go on your phone. That's your personal time. So the way that the communication hits you there, it sometimes can create a different kind of, it's not even ad fatigue. It's a lack of receptivity at that point because this is your break, and this is you have to be careful as a brand not to be invasive in those spaces. So when somebody opens a newspaper, they turn on TV news, whatever it is, turn on the radio, they're comfortable and have understood that that's a message receiving platform. Um, and you tend to have a greater receptivity for that kind of messaging. So
Yes, yes.
I guess the challenge is creatively, how do you not invade someone's space and get to connect with them in the online space versus the offline space? So that's kind of the flip on that.
Yeah, and those are some great points, and you did touch upon trust and building credibility with audiences. And I would want to pivot now to Stephanie, right? I know Stephanie, banking is often about trust. During this period, this quarter particularly, a lot of persons are out there getting loans, for whether it's like for a car, a house, whatever, for a loved one. How does media monitoring help brands to protect or strengthen their brand perception and build that credibility?
No, I mean, definitely when in the banking industry, you're talking about people's hard-earned money, right?
Mhm.
And in the Q2 period, a lot of customers are, reassessing their finances. They've budgeted for that, holiday spend at the end of the year, and they're setting their goals and their budgets for the next year. Um, in the banking industry, and I would say this across any industry that, does have I would say a busy Q4, is that you have to know where you lie against your competition, and fill some gaps if needed, if it fits in with your strategy. But brand perception certainly is something that the media monitoring provides great insight on, both online and offline. So we can see things as granularly, or measure as granularly, as something that is positive, neutral, or negative in the online space, in the offline space. And that's certainly something that we take into consideration in a big way as a bank.
Right, right. And speaking of that online space, right, a lot of young persons, including older persons, they would be online, right? And they would be looking at the ads on different pages. Are you seeing a difference in how younger versus older audiences may respond to Q4 campaigns?
Yes, definitely. I would say that all ages are kind of in the online space.
Mhm.
You find that I would say, younger demographic, they respond to things like personalization, digital first offers, promotions, rewards, and the the older generation, they respond to things that are more grounded in stability and trust, and things that are a bit more long term. So yes, we do see a response in both that is a bit different. And certainly with the different types of segmentation that we can do in the online space, we can get even more granular with the type of messaging that we even put forth for the different demographics.
Awesome, awesome. I love that point. And speaking of demographics, and I want to pivot to Kelly, right? I know you work within retail and it's a big job that you have there. How important is localization, like, tailoring campaigns for specific islands or communities? Why is that important, especially for this quarter in creating brand awareness?
All right, so thanks, Matthew. For us, as we know, we into the food retail business, we have some level of consumer electronics as well and a bit of distribution. But for us, in terms of the solution landscape, what you find is that because of our wide portfolio, we would, through the data, using the use of data, we are able to see what product does well in certain geographic locations. So, for example, a certain brand of detergent may perform well in one geographic area of the country versus another area. And so that is why we use our data to determine how we place products in stores. We have a total of 18 stores across the island. So you can imagine that when we're talking convenience, we're practically everywhere, right? And to make sure that we maximize on our square footage, our product placement is very critical for us. So to answer the question about localization, we use our data to determine that and to make sure that we maximize on our square footage per store.
Right, excellent. And how would you measure success for Q4 campaigns? Is it like sales lift, foot traffic, brand recall, or mix? What is the strategy like?
Right. So the bottom line is that we want to see an uplift, right? So we'll set ourselves targets and go hard against those targets. So yes, we will come up with that nice fancy campaign to excite customers, prizes and different things like that. But at the end of the day, we want to be able to move the needle in terms of hitting those sales figures. And we want to see an uplift. Yeah, we want to see an uplift. But it's not just about the sales. We also want brand recall. We want to build those engagement. And I always tend to say, as we get down to Q4, we work closely. So not just the hardcore commercial campaign, but we work closely with our communities. We work with other stakeholders to sort of, in terms of our sponsorship and other initiatives that we do, to send send that message of that whole offering that we're giving back to our communities and all that. So brand recall is very big for us. We want to be top of mind. We want our we all know about earned media and the importance of
Yes.
earned media. So yes, we have our own media. We push content out every day, but we want people to be telling our stories first. And that's why we go so hard in terms of our corporate social responsibility initiatives as well. So on one hand, we're pushing hard campaign value, clearly articulating our value proposition in terms of convenience, in terms of product differentiation, and all those great things that we offer. And at the same time, we managing that corporate reputation, letting the wider public understand that we are serious about community, we're serious about families and that kind of thing. So when we connect the dots together, then we make that big brand impact that we're looking for.
Right, right. I love that. And, I think companies that practice those CSI initiatives and those goodwill sort of moves, they gain respect and reputation with the communities and other companies. With all this going on, especially for Q4, how does a company, a marketer such as yourself, manage, these campaigns and to stay fresh and to overcome creative fatigue? I know that's a big thing.
Right, well, for us, we do our what we call our overall seasonal campaign. But what we try to do to keep it fresh and keep it innovative is that we work closely with some of our key suppliers. So it's not just coming up with all the ideas by ourselves. We partner with key stakeholders, key suppliers to give it that variation in terms of the offering. So then because remember, in retail, our portfolio is very wide, and so we mix and match. For example, how do we integrate our consumer electronics with the grocery store? What our prices look like in the campaign. For example, a customer may just win a kitchen makeover. How do we integrate the businesses together to deliver that total experience, that total offering? Because on one hand, we have food retail. On the other hand, we have distribution. We know that in Q1, the alcohol category does very well, because it's festive. People are buying alcohol. They're cooking more. They're having a lot more get-togethers and so on. How do we integrate? Because we have to think about the customer at the end of the day. What will excite them, right? What a grand prize in a campaign should look like, that kind of thing, and making sure that it's aligned with our type of business. You see. So so we look at it from all angles to make sure that we're fresh and relevant and excite the customer at every interaction, to be quite honest.
Right, right. So really pinpointing them along the customer journey and getting them to
Correct.
right. So I know retail in itself is a competitive, area and banking and so with the agencies, right? So I open this question to the floor to three of you. What advice would you give to marketers on the whole on staying responsive to shifts in customer behavior during the holiday season? I think that's a big question. So maybe we can start with you, Kelly.
Sorry, you broke up a little bit. Can you repeat the question?
Sorry, I was saying, retail, banking, and agency, they all operate within their own competitive, arenas, right? What advice would you give to marketers on trying to stay responsive to shifts in customer behavior during this season?
Right. So again, I always tend to say this, right? We have to know what's happening in our business. We have to know where the revenue is coming from. We have to know the key portfolio that is driving the business, right? We have to know where to play, to be quite honest, right? In retail, while Marcy is the leader in integrated retail, we do have competition, and we have competition in different pockets. But at the end of the day, we have to know that. We have to know where we are strong, and we have to know where to play. We also have to know where not to play, right? But the only how we can do that is by understanding our business and so on. So there are things that we just don't get involved in, and there are things that we know this is strategic for us. So you really sit down and dissect the market, understanding the customer segments, understanding the customer dynamics. For example, we're in the distribution business. We do quite a bit of liquor, but we understand the market and we know that that's not an area where we're ready to play, right? So we understand that. We will take whatever percentage market share we can take now, but we're not ready to play in that space yet, right? But when it comes to mainstream retail, we can't let the competitor beat us there because that's our game. So we have to understand our business, understand our customer segments, and just look at what customers are requesting. We have a loyalty program. We have an active database of customers where we monitor buying patterns. We know what people are interested in. We know through media monitoring, we know when we put content out there, we know what persons are engaging with versus what they're not so interested in. So all these insights are things that we pick up and to make our decisions in terms of campaign development or whatever initiative we want to roll out.
Excellent, excellent. Moving on to Stephanie, what are some, what have you noticed in terms of the responses for this season? What advice would you give marketers?
Well, I would definitely say that it is a time where the market is very saturated.
Mhm.
Definitely very saturated with a lot of holiday campaigns, a lot going on. And banking is certainly a competitive space because you have to obviously differentiate yourself in a competitive space. And for us, especially with Answer Bank, we call it the new bank on the block, only been around for about 4 years. Um, we really have to, leave our mark on, our customer base and potential customer base. And it is a time where persons are planning for the year ahead. Um, and like I said, there's a lot of holiday spending and so on. So, what would be my advice for customer shifts during the holiday season? Really stay close to what's happening in real time. Um, Monitor what your customers are seeing, how they're reacting, how they're transacting through various ways that any company does that. For banking, it might be foot traffic in the branch, it might be what's happening on our mobile app in terms of traffic, what their needs are. But be ready to pivot your messaging when needed. And agility isn't just about reacting, because
Mhm.
you really have to be rooted in what your strategy is. Sometimes a competitor may respond to something that you're doing, but you don't necessarily need a response. Now, the media monitoring is telling you all of these things, right? So you
Yeah.
kind of have to know when is a good time to just let your strategy sit and settle and run, and maybe when it is a good time to respond, whether that's a from a retail perspective, a price adjustment, or a value proposition that you just leave to run as it is. So I think that the holiday season certainly keeps marketers on their toes.
Yes, it
um,
does.
and it's quite exciting. But that would certainly be my advice: stay agile and know what's happening in the market.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you, Stephanie. That was a good demarcation between, reactive marketing and marketing with purpose. There's a big difference between the two. And I'm curious as well to hear from you, Stephanie, because this is a really busy time of the year, quarter 4. What are some of the methods you have for overcoming like creative fatigue when you have all that influx of information coming your way? How do you overcome it? What are some strategies?
So I actually love what Kelly said. The partnership certainly, keep things happening, keep it fresh.
Mhm.
But I think that as a marketer, when you are building a campaign that's running for like 3 months, you have to kind of take that into consideration upfront.
Mhm.
Whether your messaging plan shifts, whether, in Trinidad, we have a lot happening in the holiday season from Diwali to, in retail spaces, usually Black Friday going into Christmas and so on. So you definitely build your campaign around the interests of your client base and what would mean something to them. And then in terms of tracking and monitoring, we're lucky that we can actually see in real time, at least on from a digital perspective, how much engagement certain things receive, when engagement is sort of dropping off, and when it might be a good time to make an adjustment.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. Passing it on to Arnold now. What advice would you give marketers during this season on staying responsive to shifts?
Well, I'm going to take a step back. I
Mhm.
agree with what both Kelly and Stephanie have said. From an agency perspective and kind of the advice that we give, even internally, is prepare, prepare, prepare. Okay, the last quarter is war at the end of the day, regardless of the industry, whether it's retail or banking or insurance, general insurance, that it's war. So to prepare for war, you have to use things like Media InSite, and I mean the concept, not necessarily the company, but the company is good too. Um, and look at a year ago. What happened in that period a year ago? How did your competitors roll out their plans? What did it look like 2 years ago? You might very well see a consistency in their approach. So you have an idea of what your kind of media weighting might need to be in a competitive space. Then, yes, you have to recognize there will be a certain amount of fatigue. There is flooding, and your messaging may not necessarily need to be singular. So with the digital space, the online space, you have the ability to do an A/B version. So you can have targeting and messaging coming from different angles. And you see that receptivity and use that data to kind of feed what your next layer of stuff should look like as you get closer to cutoff, which is what, 24th or so. And then everything that if your competitors, do respond to you, and they will, you have to be careful with that response to them because at the end of the day, you have your strategy, you have your brand, and you have a brand new year next year. So you don't want to do anything that's necessarily going to change the way that you're perceived in the following year. There is also a delicate balance with kind of client and customer churn, with customers that come on board and then come off board, and you end up looking for the new customer base because you've lost some. And the excitement that happens there, I've seen clients in the past almost forget that they have existing customers. So if you reward, hey, come and join us today, or buy this, whatever, and it's only for new customers. Sometimes your existing customers take a step back and almost say, what about me? So the season is very important. The drive to get more business and to make up for any lost ground, that's really important. But there's that balance between what you have to respect and keep stable, and how you grow and how you satisfy those changing demands. When you do A/B copy testing kind of thing in online space, you directly see in real time what kind of messaging people are more receptive towards. And that can influence the way that your campaign rolls out, not just online, but offline as well. And probably the final point would be listen to your floor. And that means the people that are on the front line, whether they're in retail, whether they're in banking, wherever they are, whoever's interacting with customers, the greatest ambassador you have for your business, those are the people that interact with your customers and consumers on a daily basis. So find an internal mechanism that allows you to benefit from their knowledge, their feedback. Sometimes that insight is undervalued, and they're really very important people to your business.
Absolutely, absolutely. I could not agree more with that point, Arnold. Thank you so much.
And,
Right.
and Matthew,
Yes, Kelly.
if you may allow me, I just wanted to
Sure.
make two quick points, right?
Sure.
We're talking advice. As marketers and brand managers, etc., I think we need to not be prescriptive. Whenever we brief in our agencies, let us try and do proper briefs. We know what our objective of the campaign is. We know where we're trying to head. But when we do those briefs, let's not be prescriptive. Let us allow the agencies to come up with their concepts. Let them do the ideation and come back with their creativity and give us some options to choose from. Because very often we as marketers can be a little prescriptive and then we lose the impact of a brilliant idea. So that's one thing we have to be very mindful of. And the other thing, to Stephanie's point, when you have a campaign, I mean, I've had some banking experience myself, and when you have a campaign that starts in November and runs into January, the question is, how do you keep people engaged? And for me, what I did when I do my campaign development, I would do two sets of creatives from the get-go. So as December ends, I switch into January, same campaign, a refresh look. So these are things that we have to do proactively to ensure that we keep our engagement level high.
Awesome. Awesome. I love that, Kelly. Really good point. Right now we have a question from Nicole Duke Westfield, if I'm saying her name correctly. This is to the panel, so anyone can answer. They're asking, how critical is media monitoring to your reputation and issues management strategy? Right? That's the first question. And to what degree do you think negative media, whether it's online or offline, affects your brand? And where do you locate media monitoring in your strategy development? Who would like to go first? Arnold?
I'll go.
Stephanie? Yeah, right, Arnold.
So let me go backwards a bit. That's a very important question. The media monitoring feeds in from that ground level that I was referring to as in part of that preparation for any campaign. During the period of your campaign, listening to your audience with that online feedback as well is critical. Hence the A/B copy testing that I mentioned and that Kelly later went on to kind of cover. Reputation management, that is a service delivery element. Usually your campaign offerings are going to be as powerful as you can make them. Your strategy is going to be as clear and succinct as you can make it. Somewhere in that delivery system, whether it is you ordered a, bed to come and be delivered on Thursday between 1 and 4. I'm just picking something randomly. Somebody takes time out of their day to be there to receive that, and it doesn't come, they're not called, and they don't hear anything for that day, maybe even the next day. The you you build again the front line. You build a level of distrust to all your offers, to all the credibility of everything that your campaign is out there to deliver. So the greatest asset again are the boots on the ground, the people that actually deliver on your promise. If you don't deliver on your promise during the season, especially when it's sensitive, especially time sensitive, you can negatively impact the following year. And there's a tendency when those negative comments come online, there is a tendency to have people. So I've seen people want to take off the negative comments off of their social pages, and personal view is don't is find a way to turn that negativity into a positive. Make sure that you fix what happened, and fix it so well that that person comes back and say, yeah, they misstep. There was a misstep here, and they made good there, because that shows a level of responsiveness and care for customers. No company is going to deliver 100%. Nobody's going to be perfect. It's if when mistakes happen, it's how you handle those mistakes that makes a difference.
Exactly. Yes, definitely. And I mean, going into the comments and looking at what people are saying and even responding, that builds a sense of community. You're showing that we see you, we know you, and we're going to put our best foot forward. All right. Kelly, Stephanie, would you like to answer this question as well? How critical is the media monitoring to reputation?
Sure. So I would I agree with what Arnold would have said. And I just have one small point to make, which is that trust is not just by what you put into the market, but it's about, how you communicate how you communicate generally in moments where you're needed to, in moments of vulnerability, right? Because the ad monitoring can help you with, it could be like an early warning system, an early detection, but it's how you respond to it that really matters.
Definitely. Kelly, any thoughts?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I just like to add that I think the media monitoring is critical because it gives you first-hand insight as to what people are saying about your brand, whether positive or negative or indifferent. Sometimes there are perceptions out there that we need to hear those comments, right? So Media InSite is, to me, it gives you a good sense as to what people are saying about the brand. So it's critical. And it gives you a chance to kind of tweak and fix as you go because you may think you're offering a particular service, but you're perceived differently. And so it's very critical you have the information, the insight to act and make decisions. Yeah.
Definitely. Awesome. Yes. And one of the things that I pride myself with the company, with Media InSite, is that we have an integration of AI and also our human efforts to go in and look at the data and make sense of it for our clients. So that's, we get twofold right there. And speaking of AI has been a huge topic, a huge buzzword for the past couple of years or so, and still is. I don't think that's going to change. How can agencies, I'll direct this one to Arnold, how can agencies prepare or adapt to the changes brought about by AI in marketing?
Well, I have to assume that all agencies have started some level of adaptation, but I guess from a word of advice would be proceed with caution. It is a wonderful danger. And the part that's wonderful is this power of the hive mind kind of thing supporting you and delivering quick responses to things like even processing data and delivering a kind of quick summary that gives you even a jump start on taking a deep dive. The idea of creating visuals that you may use as a reference to do something in a real sense, but something you may not have considered in an approach. The the one thing that I've noticed from AI is it's not going to create for you at this time. It can help you bounce ideas back and forth. It can feedback um, its interpretation of what creativity is. But it's learning, and it's learning from a larger volume of people than we have in the Caribbean. So the things that they're learning is fit for another area. So the adaptation of AI to your agency, everybody has a different take, obviously, but in my view, you want to be able to make sure that the human element leads your your hands-on approach to your client success leads, um, and then you get that support to clean up anything you might have missed, or even an alternate view that allows you to explore it. But if you make AI become your leader, then that makes you replaceable. And an agency that is easily replaced because it relies so heavily on AI and not on their own insight, on their own experiences, on their own ways of looking at things. That there's a good chance the client says, "Well, geez, if you're AI driven completely, I can hire a guy and be AI driven," and then you become replaceable. There's no such thing as being irreplaceable as an agency, but you certainly want to make sure that the expertise that an agency brings, the processes that an agency brings in their thought and strategy development and all that, and the way they approach media, that becomes invaluable. Not irreplaceable, but be as invaluable as you can to clients and use it as a tool. Just like when we moved, I happened to be, unfortunately, well, fortunately, because there was an option, old enough to come from um, manual mechanicals, pre-computer kind of stuff. Shooting on film and U-matic and old stuff. Um, and when the computers and the digital cameras and all these things came, it was, oh my God, everybody's going to be replaced. And it didn't. This is not that era. This is an era where the processor can be put into a walking version of you and physically replace you. It can't do what you do if you're driven completely by what the computer tells you to do. So you never forget the base where you come from, especially the younger people. Don't use um, ChatGPT as something you wrote. You
Mhm.
use it as something to kind of see, acid test maybe what you wrote. Or you will forget how to use your God-given talents of writing. And that's the same for photographers and cinematographers and animators. You have to look at these as tools to augment what you do versus a replacement and try and shortchange your effort. So still get paid, but make the computer do the work. That's not advisable at all. Don't forget what you were trained to do. Keep that in your heart. And it's a business, but you're in this business of advertising and communications because you love it. If you're not passionate about it, you will never survive. So if it's something that you love, you can't allow an AI kind of scenario to act for you. Use it as your partner, but not instead of you. That's the best kind of advice I can give.
Yes, Arnold. I agree. I mean, you can't take the human soul out from the creative campaigns, from your ad strategies and, working with your team. I know there was some buzz about AI coming here to replace people's jobs, but I think that has changed to, okay, people knowing how to use it as a tool, that gives them the advantage in whatever arena they're in, right? And I think that's spot on. Right now, we're on to our second poll of the webinar. All right. It is, let me read the question here. What matters most in evaluating Q4 campaign success? Right? The options are sales revenue impact, brand awareness and recall, customer engagement, and share of voice versus competitors. So I invite the audience right now to please put in your poll. You have about 20 seconds or so before we close it. All right, about 10 more seconds. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see the results. Okay, so the top one was sales and revenue impact as one of the most matters in evaluating Q4 campaign success. And second to that was customer engagement. And thirdly, brand awareness and recall. Yeah. All right, so if anyone wants to touch base on that, Arnold, Kelly, Stephanie, what are some of your thoughts on these poll results?
I'm going to look at the weakest number.
Yes, share your voice.
And whilst that may be true, that you're not really concerned about that because you're in a final quarter war. I would implore you to keep share of voice in your back pocket. So when you start to track your messaging and your cadence and your investment against your competitors, and then layer that on top of sales or layer sales on top of that, you will be able to see if there's a direct relationship between the level of investment of your competitor, your level of investment, and your sales. So you should be seeing, as a chart, I'm going to do hands because I don't have a chart here, but you should see the wave of your investment, then a wave of your sales growth. And that will help you know that you had internally that you've had the right kind of impact and your stuff was in the right place. So even if you make your numbers, or even if you don't make your number, your final numbers, if you see the wave kind of correspond with your investment, and if you see a competitor's investment that negatively impacts your sales, then you know that something they did affected you. Then you use that data to inform how you move forward as you go along.
Mhm. Kelly, Stephanie, any thoughts on the poll results?
Well, for me, I think all four variables are important, but the question asks most. So I tend to agree with with the responses. But I do believe that brand recall has to play some role there and so on. So it's a combination of things. I mean, yes, at the end of the day, it's the bottom line, but we want persons to connect with your brand. So it cannot just be about the sales. You want, because once you build that brand to a level, you want the sales will come over time. So the immediate, yes, I agree, the sales impact, but brand and sales go hand in hand in my view.
Excellent. Stephanie?
I mean, I'm really echoing also because at the end of the day, you are running a business. So the bottom line does matter. The sales impact does matter. But when you put the poll up on the screen, I said, these are also important. So I think that it's important that all are considered in your strategy and your monitoring as a campaign kind of goes along.
Okay, excellent. And, speaking to you, Stephanie, in terms of product promotions for this year. So we pivoted a little bit towards the loans and investments part of banking. How do you balance these product promotions with, broader brand building campaigns? Where's the balance? What are some of the challenges you face and how you overcome it?
Well, I think, when you're building your strategy, the brand has to be at the core of everything that you're doing. And if you place that above your promotions, it should sort of filter down into what you do from a promotional standpoint. So your brand building is one thing, but then also your promotions still reflect the brand proposition. Um, and so, as a brand, you have to figure out what that proposition is. And is it unique enough? In marketing, we always talk about what is your unique selling point that you can own as a brand or as a company. So, I think that that's certainly something that's very important in terms of standing out, bringing to market products that your customers or potential customers will be interested in, that would add value to their lives. So I think that's definitely something that has to be considered. But I believe that you can do both at the same time, but you have to identify what your objectives are, because obviously a promotion is separate and apart from brand building, from an objective perspective, if that makes
Definitely.
sense.
Yes, yes. You have to put out objectives there, your goals, make it smart, measurable, actionable. All right. We have a question here now in the chat from Lori Best. All right. She's asking the panel, are you noticing if traditional ads aren't holding the attention the way you used to? And is there a shift more towards dynamic formats to stand out in a saturated market, especially during this season? So that's one part of the question. So we'll get to the rest afterwards. Arnold, Kelly, would you like to touch base on that?
All right, go on, Kelly. I'll come
No,
after.
no, you go ahead. That's fine. Go ahead.
All right. So I think that to answer that, I don't think you could look at it that it's a now thing. If your communication is checking a box and doesn't have a strategy behind it, you're just doing something just to say that we did it, and you can tell your senior people that, oh yeah, man, we had something up there. And we put ads in the newspaper or on TV or whatever it is. But it wasn't founded in real preparation with a real strategy, with a messaging that you've worked, seriously to connect with an audience, with an idea that cuts through, then yeah, you will definitely see something that doesn't have as great an impact. There needs to though be, and I'm assuming this is what you mean by a dynamic thing. If you have a
Like short form video and storytelling. That's what
right,
the
so
reference
if you
was.
have traditional, God, I hate that word, the traditional media um, messaging that's out there, and you have a, a connective tissue to online, whether it's a QR code or augmented reality or some layer of stuff built into it, then you get to spread the message. And that, it may be something that is connected to real-time things that are in an ambient kind of a campaign. Your campaign has to be a greater whole. It's not whether there's a print ad. It's part of a whole mix of what you're doing with your activities for the season. So you have to see it in a much broader view. And if you're having communication that is online, that is offline, that is in traditional, that you feel lacks the impact, then you may need to revisit the creative if you have the audience in traditional media. So maybe the creative is not right. So the receptivity to that message is not right. So maybe look at the messaging and not use it, say, boy, it's this medium versus that medium. You bought that medium because you know from your own, media strategy that the people you want to buy your product are there. So if you feel that it's not connecting, chances are you might need to look back at the messaging.
Kelly?
Yeah, so I would just add that it really boils down to having that integrated approach, understanding your touch points, right? Because in some markets, there are media platforms that are still relevant from a traditional standpoint, right? So, for example, in St. Lucia, radio is a big deal, right? Based on the type of product, type of campaign. you may still place an ad in the newspaper. So it's about understanding the type of product and understanding the your target customer, right? And placing accordingly. Now, the integration has to be the messaging. There may be minor tweaks in messaging, but or the way the message is presented, but at the end of the day, the dots must be connected, right? So I believe it's really sitting down and map out this campaign. Who am I targeting? What are the touch points that I have available to me? And just tailoring the message so that it's appropriate for each touch point, to be quite honest.
Yes. Yes. All right, we have another question as well from Lori. She asks, do you think leaning into these newer formats like these short form story videos and storytelling campaigns are effective to differentiate your campaigns? And what pitfalls we can expect if we try those sort of methods? Stephanie, you want to go?
Sure. So yes and no. That is how I feel, and I'll tell you why. I think the strength of something's effectiveness sometimes lies in the storytelling itself. So, for instance, the Super Bowl is obviously a big deal in the US. A lot of people actually love to watch the ads. They stick around to watch the ads. Tide, in one instance, did shorter form videos for that particular platform. And I loved it because it was just short, but it was saying that anybody wearing a shirt in an ad, oh, this could be a Tide ad. So it was very short form, kind of snappy, and kind of owned the Super Bowl commercials because now every time you saw an ad, is it a Tide ad? So it was kind of buzzing. That year or the year prior, before I can't remember, Budweiser decided they were going to do long format ads, like, a lot of great film. I think that was the one with the horses and so on. Both were effective. So I think my advice, therefore, would be, what are we trying to tell? What story are we trying to tell? And is it captivating your audience base in a way that's engaging? And with that in mind, it could be short format, it could be long format.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. We have another question just to give a notice to the panelists and also the audience members. We have about 10 minutes remaining, well, about 7 minutes remaining for the panel discussion. So please send your questions in. We're going to get to it. All right. We have one question from Kavita Sukram. She's asking, how can media monitoring support government agencies more meaningfully rather than tracking criticism and reacting to it? So that's something that Arnold would have probably touched on with the comments and so on, right? Arnold, would you like to touch base on that?
The unfortunate thing, government is always going to be hit with criticism. It's just the reality. Again, it's how you handle that criticism, how you handle the messaging, and making sure that everybody else that has seen that message feels your positive impact on how you handle that message. And just as a side, I couldn't do government personally. If you're in that position, I take my hat off to you, and your commitment to the nation is phenomenal. Because you do have to bear the brunt of some of that stuff, and it's very hard. And you take it personally, and you shouldn't. People have their lives that they're looking after, their families that they're looking after, and when they share those things, sometimes those frustrations are born from things not even related to that topic. That is just the straw that broke the camel's back. So, don't overreact to it, but react to it for sure, or respond to it at least. But yeah, it's media monitoring can help when you see a downturn in the negative sentiments. Then you're doing a good job.
Awesome. And we have another question for you, Arnold. I think everyone really loves to hear your points. Nicole Duke Westfield, she's asking, we started off by making a point that this has been an important year for many countries in the region. And we've had the major shifts in the US politically and economically. How should companies be looking at these shifts in preparation for 2026 and using media monitoring to position themselves more effectively to suit?
Oh man, you couldn't ask a harder question.
Thanks, Nicole.
All right. I think there are layers to that. That's a very hard question. I may ask you to jump back into the question again, but so um, it depends, I guess, on your business. So if your business starting from the point of export and understanding your trade relations and what do you have to solve from that perspective, you have to put that in one pocket. But if it's how the sentiments of US media and the sentiments towards people and the social part of communication. I'm trying to identify, so maybe there can be
Mhm.
a second layer to how that question is asked. If it's the social part of it and the identifying yourself as he, him, or she, her, or whatever it is, and that part of communication, if that's what you're referring to, that becomes a kind of brand and corporate decision as to where you stand as a brand, aligned with a particular set of thinking. Um, I would encourage from, if it's a social thing, to recognize that everybody is a potential consumer and customer and respect everybody. Because at the end of the day, you provide goods and services that people benefit from. You have a competitor that if you don't satisfy the need of a customer, then somebody else will satisfy that need. So you certainly want to be there. And did I miss another point? I'm sure there were 3 points kind of intertwined in that one thing, Matt.
Yeah, let me get to the question here. Right. Nicole would have also mentioned, how, companies should be looking at these ships in preparation 2026 and how using media monitoring tools to position themselves more effectively. That was the last bit.
Right. Well, so there are different kinds of media monitoring tools. So if it's from ad spend and frequency and stuff like what Media InSite satisfies, I'm not sure that you can predict how 2026 comes from stuff because you're monitoring what happens in the now, not projecting the future. But the sentiments of, let's say, are you okay if I call another service? If that's okay.
Oh, we'll keep it to us. We'll keep it to Media
All
InSite.
right.
Don't worry.
There are other ways to look at the potential um, future sentiments for next year. And then you use that as you start to roll out the year. You make sure you have your media insight support to make sure that your activities are going in the way that they want to. And don't look at media monitoring as something you come at the end of the month. I believe it was Stephanie that said something in the very one of the first things that she said was about the real-time access to the data to see how things are. You need to be able to address your things now for now. By the end of the month, it's too late. You have too much ground to make up if you don't pay attention to what's happening in the now.
Yeah.
And the dynamics of the United States, we don't know what that's going to look like next year. It has not stopped. It's a changing, ever changing kind of thing. So it's a really deep, really important question. I don't think I can give you a fulsome answer because that market it impacts the entire world, and it I don't think it is settled yet.
It's not a problem. Thank you, Arnold. We have one last question to round off the panel discussion, and I think it's an important one. We have in the audience with us, of course, we have big companies, but also we have small to medium-sized enterprises, and they matter as well. My question for the three of you, how can companies who can't afford media monitoring tools or capacity, how can they adjust themselves, to capture audience attention if they may not be able to afford media monitoring?
All right.
Stephanie, can you
Anybody
handle
want to go first?
I mean, I guess I could sort of kick it off.
Sure.
But in light of media monitoring, I think awareness is key. So you really have to be plugged in to everything going on. News, every type of media, online and offline. Um, Listen to radio. I love that. That's a very great way to just, get your ear on the ground and know what's happening in the market. So definitely knowing what's in the market is one thing, and social media, you can do a bit of scanning there also. And then I also think it takes a bit of creativity. Like you really have to know who you're going after, who your target market is, and figure out the best way to get the best bang for your buck. So be creative. Not being able to spend a large amount of money on various tools or various campaigns and media spends is not prohibitive in you making an impact. Be creative.
Awesome. Be creative. Definitely.
On top, a part of that creative is applying a tool or a tactic within your communication that can allow for a level of responsiveness. So just picking something random, a QR code on something, if you say scan for an additional discount or scan for a bonus something, you have the ability to track those scans, and then you have an idea of how much it costs for that customer acquisition. So you do have a way that you can connect what you have out there in the media, and you spent all your money on it, so you can't necessarily purchase a service to kind of tell you, what's happening. But you can certainly gauge the impact your campaign has through some kind of tool that begs a response beyond sales. Because a sale can happen and somebody didn't see the ad, right? Somebody can actually buy something and never came across a TV commercial, never heard the radio commercial. They just happened to have a need and got that need fulfilled somewhere. So that's you can't look at that sale in isolation. You would need to be able to have some other connective tissue between the communication and a response so that you can track that.
Excellent. Kelly?
Yeah, so I would just add that for a small business, micro business, there's some value in adopting the social media. It's cost effective and you can get some good insights there. But apart from that, I think you have to do a lot of networking, understand the players in your segment and do some networking, attend events, attend trade shows based on what it is, where you talk to people and get some real insights as to, their perspectives and so on. You can utilize things, you may have a customer database, you may have the contact numbers, you can do things like WhatsApp polls and so on, just to test out little things as you go. So again, there are a lot of cost-effective ways that you can play to get some insights as to how you're performing, how you perceive in the marketplace. You don't necessarily need to have a big budget. And as you scale, you adopt new things, new technology, new systems of measurement. But I think quite a bit of networking and so on could help together with the social media.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Kelly. All right, so we are at the end of our panel discussion. I want to give a huge thanks to the team here, Arnold, Stephanie, and Kelly, for your insights you've provided to us, from knowing how to create effective campaigns for Q4, how to manage creative fatigue, and really manage an ecosystem within the Caribbean as other powers such as the United States move about politically and economically. I thank you so much for your time and for your insights. Audience members, I invite you to please send in in the chat some emojis, give a round of applause to our panelists, and feel free to connect with them via LinkedIn as they would allow, and you can reach out to them. I do have to give you notice that we may not have been able to get to all of your questions today, but we are sending a key takeaway report towards the end of the event to everyone who is here, so the panelists can answer it and have those answers noted down. All right, so you're not going to be missed. All right, thank you so much, Arnold, Stephanie, Kelly, once more. Next up,
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Next up, we have Alicia Mahabir, who's our current client success manager, soon to be media analyst come October. I'm really pleased to announce her and to welcome her as she's going to give us a service walkthrough and scenario with sample data. Alicia, I'll pass it on to you.
All right, thank you so much, Matthew, and
You're
good
welcome.
morning to everyone. Oh, I just want to ensure my slideshow is working. All right, great. So good morning again, everyone. And as you would have noticed, or Alison would have indicated previously, we have some big news coming out of Media InSite. Come October 1st, we will be launching our media analysis service. And this is something that our clients have been asking for I would say a little over 5 years, and we finally put things in place with personnel as well as software to give you that service. Now, our media analysis service is going to take things a step further. Right now, you guys get the raw data, but we're looking to transform that into a clearer picture for you. We're looking at providing you insights and actionable insights when it comes to your campaigns and your reputation. Now, I know we have some clients on the call, so you all are familiar with our services, but for those who are new to Media InSite, we are the leading Caribbean media monitoring company. We operate within the entire Caribbean diaspora, and we have two arms of service. So we have our advertising monitoring service, and we have our media monitoring service. Our advertising monitoring service speaks to traditional as well as social meta-channel advertising monitoring, whereas our media monitoring service speaks to earned media monitoring, social listening, and social benchmarking. And what we're seeking to do with the media analyst service is actually combine both data sets as well as external databases. So we're looking at providing you with insight, uncovering trends, looking at sentiment, giving you opportunities where you can better your ROI, looking at the competitor landscape, and really giving you one succinct report that's going to help you with performance, perception, and impact. And you're probably wondering, okay, so we have the media monitoring subscription already. Why do I need or should I invest in the analysis side of things? So monitoring is crucial, and I think our panelists would have showcased that completely when they would have discussed their points earlier on. Monitoring helps you understand what has happened and what is happening in real time. I think Stephanie gave us that insight of real-time monitoring is crucial to a brand. But analysis takes it a step further. And what it's going to do is actually guide your path onto what's coming next, looking at historical data, looking at the different data sets, whether it be internally as well as externally. Now, we have companies and clients that actually do this already. They have teams built in, they have agencies, they have Power BI. Why Media InSite for your media analytics? Well, we have three main points, and I think you all will agree with me when I say this. Our expertise. We have a little over 45 years of media monitoring expertise internally. We have the technology. We've invested heavily in proprietary software that allows us to get the data that our clients need. And of course, our commitment to excellence, not just the front-facing client services team, but our back-end team as well, operationally. There isn't a client that we have that can say we don't give our all. And of course, our last one is the tailored solutions, right? Our clients come to us not for a one-size-fits-all media monitoring. We actually go in depth and sit down with our clients and understand their specific points and specific needs to tailor our solutions for you. So Joelle and the team told me I had to get a case study ready, right? Raw data that we can showcase to the team. But before we actually dive into that, I want to just spend a few minutes on the noise that is to come. I think Arnold, as well as Stephanie and Kelly, would have mirrored that going into Q4, it's going to be a war. And they've covered the social and the online elements. I think I want to focus on traditional for this case study, especially the Trinidad and Tobago market. So looking at prior year's data, we see that Q4 had over 300,000 traditional media ads in place for October, November, December. Of course, we know radio is king. So radio had the majority of those ads. But what I want to focus on is actually television aspects of it. So in terms of the case study, I wanted to focus in on the alcohol beverage industry within the TT market. And I focused on this industry for two main reasons. This particular industry has significant growth over the past year. We have profits being called early on for Angostura in Q1. Of course, we had regional expansion and international expansion for the Carib brand. But more recently, the industry has come into a hot topic with the new government, of course, saying that there may be changes to the legal alcohol age, right? We're going to raise it from 18 to 21. So this industry is definitely one to watch within the next coming months. But what I wanted to focus on is a particular ad. Now, I don't know if you can tell from the screenshots, but this is probably one of my favorite ads for the Christmas season that happened last year. And it's actually Carib's TV commercial. Now, this ad launched in 2022. Now, what I did is I pulled data from 2022, looking, of course, at the traditional media landscape. And we would have seen that both Carib and White Oak would have had television ads running. But when Carib came out with this ad, I don't know if it's just me, but there was a certain nostalgia that the ad brought. It evoked emotion, and definitely one when it came to storytelling. So Carib came out with a bang, 104 ad placements, whereas White Oak, our system detected 62. In 2023, there was a change, right? White Oak said, none of that. And they launched the Respect the Rain campaign. Fantastic campaign. But again, there was nothing from Carib. So I think this kind of embodies the war that Arnold was pre-alluding to. Definitely a competitive landscape. Fast track to 2024, and we see Carib launching their second leg of this iconic TV commercial. And again, they won in terms of share of voice when it came to the TV market with 106 ad detections. But I'm not the only one that thought that this was a iconic, nostalgic ad. What we did is we actually went to our earned media side of things, and we were able to look and pull Christmas mentions specific to the Carib brand. And we were able to isolate 150 earned media mentions coming in from that ad alone. An engagement of 14,000 plus, potential reach of 4.8 million. And what was really interesting is, yes, of course, we did have the traditional media coverage, but a lot of coverage, and the majority of it came from the social media arms of the business. So Facebook, Instagram, X. And when we drill down in terms of the most engaging earned media content, we found that people were loving the ad. Chrissy on X, the entire Carib team needs a raise. There's no reason I should be crying. Food Run TT. This is the second year of the Carib Bear ad. And great, wonderful progression. The Christmas tree guy has his own truck now. If this video doesn't jar some Christmas cheer, what will? Small Craft on X said, we watched the new Carib Bear ad again. Who sent me? And then, of course, Cyan McIntosh said, Carib Bear released a Christmas ad, thing to make your eyes cry. So it definitely raised those emotions within every Caribbean person. Beauty of the ad was that it was not just something that looked like it was Trinidad. It was something that looked like it could be from Grenada, Barbados, St. Lucia, and it really, really brought home the art of storytelling. So the public perception and the sentiment coming out of that traditional TV ad actually gave the brand a 85, let's say 86% positive sentiment. There was 14 neutral, and there was some negative sentiment in there. A lot of the negativity had to do with the actual use of, a foreign music bed as opposed to something more local. But that 85 positive is huge. So it made me wonder what was the overall performance in the industry itself. And what we saw is that Angostura actually had the share of voice when it comes to earned media. So of course that was coming out from a lot of the CSR that they would have put forth in Q4. Carib would have had 35%. But what stood out to me was the fact that when we looked at the actual breakdown by brand in terms of sentiment, Angostura had almost 5 times negative sentiment than Carib did. And when we looked at the positive sentiment, the difference between a 78% positive sentiment versus Angostura's 47% is mind-blowing. And that contributed very much from that traditional TV ad campaign. So what did the data tell us? We see a direct and a measurable impact of the traditional ad campaigns that can have brand perception and sentiment, and of course, amplify the brand performance itself. We would mirror a lot of what the panelists would have said in terms of recommendation. I think Arnold said, you really need to leverage your share of voice. Kelly would have mentioned, the storytelling aspect of it, focus on engagement and emotional connection that your ads can bring, whether it be online, social, or traditional media. And again, look for different KPIs. Of course, everything goes back to the sale and the revenue at the end of the day. But let's bring in other KPIs. Let's look at trends. Let's look at sentiment and see how we can maximize and measure the campaign itself. So that was just really our quick introduction to the media analysis service. Please be sure to reach out to your account executives for your existing clients. And for new clients, feel free to reach out to Joelle Moniquette, our sales and marketing manager. That's it for me. Thank you so much, guys. I'll pass it over to Joelle.
Thank you so much, Alicia. That was extremely insightful. And as you mentioned, anyone who would like to get some more information on this or to see things in action for their brands, just give us a call and we'll be happy to serve. So on behalf of Media InSite, we're really coming to the end and we are really glad that we had this webinar today. I'd like to give a heartfelt thanks to the entire panel for sharing these valuable insights with us. Kelly, thank you for showing all those marketing tips and alignment for the impact in the retail space. Stephanie, we appreciate your perspective from the banking sector and how campaigns are being reshaped and connected with more meaning for the customers. Arnold, your regional view and advertising gives us the insight for refining messages and of course benchmarking them. And of course, Alicia, you really shined being our new media analyst. And thank you for showing that real-time media monitoring data. And of course, the new structure of our media analyst approach, the strategic reports and building that momentum for our clients and for stronger data-driven conversations. A big thank you to our moderator here today, Matthew. You did an amazing job and thank you for driving the conversations today. Behind the scenes, of course, we have to shout out to our team. Alison, your vision continues to shine through all these events that we have. Jolene, our marketing coordinator, thank you for pulling all these moving parts together. And of course, for making everything run smoothly. For our team that's joining us today, thank you for your support as well. Most importantly, all our attendees today, we know you're taking the time off of your busy schedule. And of course, we thank you so much for that. no, I can't let you go without anything for more things extra special. We are now leaving you with a 10% discount for ad monitoring and social channel advisor packages for the month of October through December 2025, this high traffic holiday campaign period, which will give you the ability to track your paid media ads in real time as well as your social meta channels. This will be in an area of competitive intelligence. You don't want to miss out on this one. And of course, our micro businesses and entrepreneurs, we see you and we haven't forgotten you. We are also giving you a special 30 minutes consultation with our marketing team where we will share some quick tips and tricks in order for you to navigate your last quarter in 20 and we can all succeed together. So thank you again for being with us. And of course, this Q4, we are all going to tackle it together. And we are looking forward to another webinar in the early part of 2026. So have a wonderful day and thank you again. We definitely enjoyed it. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Joel. We have a next poll that's up here. All right. The question is asking, would you consider testing a short-term monitoring solution for Q4? All right. So I see you guys already are attending the answers here. All right. We're going to give you about 10 seconds more. 10, 9, 8, 7. All right. 3, 2, 1. Let's end the poll. All right. So you guys answered yes, definitely. All right. So considering a short-term media monitoring solution for Q4. And secondly, maybe, depending on costs. So you do see the worth, but we'll meet you there. All right. I want to share with you guys one more thing. Thank you so much for being with us and for your time and for being so engaging. Please put your LinkedIn profiles in the comments, in the chat box, and you could reach out to any of us, any member of our team, myself included, and we will attend to you with any sort of questions you may have. All right. So definitely looking forward to the next conference, the next webinar with you, and all the best going forward into the Q.